So, it's this time of year again when the festival season has rolled around. And as you may know, I have a slightly strange relationship with festivals. Years and years ago, in a former life, I was a co-presenter of Channel 4 Goes to Glastonbury. There were a couple of evenings in which some of the Glastonbury events were co-presented by me and Katie Puckrick, a completely incongruous pairing, attempting to encourage the Channel 4 viewers to be excited about Glastonbury. Katie Puckrick did a really good job. I was the worst I have ever been. Now, I don't really do big rock festivals, and I haven't been back to Glastonbury since then, and I shudder to remember how terrible I was presenting that. But one of the things I do is I do film festivals. Like, for example, in September, I've got the Shetland Film Festival, which I've been co-curating for about 5 years. And this weekend, as part of the Larmer Tree Festival, which is a festival of music and arts, I'm curating a film club strand, a bunch of films which I really like being shown to festival goers. And one of the films that I'm showing at Larmer Tree is Grace of My Heart, about which you may or may not know. Grace of My Heart, for me, is one of the great lost rock movies of the past 20 years. It's directed by Allison Anders, and it's based in large part on the true story of the life of Carole King. And Carole King, obviously, as you know, was one of the great songwriters. She went on to make a couple of classic albums that sold millions and really became sort of defining documents of their era. And what Allison Anders has done is to take the true elements of her story and to fictionalize them. So what we have is the story of a young woman who becomes a songwriter. She falls in with a partner who becomes her husband. The marriage breaks up. She works with a producer who looks an awful lot like Phil Spector, but actually at one point says specifically that he's not Phil Spector. He refers to Phil Spector in the third person. She then goes on to have a relationship with a character who is partly based on Dennis Wilson, partly based on Brian Wilson, played by Matt Dillon, fantastically. And the whole film plays out with original songs written by people like Burt Bacharach and Elvis Costello, and it's a really extraordinary piece of work. When it first came out, it came out pretty much simultaneously with That Thing You Do, the directorial debut for Tom Hanks. And That Thing You Do is a nice, poppy, exciting, sort of bouncy movie which really captures the feel of a one-hit wonder band, but it didn't have much depth. Grace of My Heart, on the other hand, was one of those films that really played to people who loved the period that it was looking at, loved the evolution of songwriting, knew something about Carole King and her relationship with Jerry Goffin, and were really interested in that period. But it didn't find any support in cinemas. And in fact, today, you can't get it on Region 2 DVD. I have a Region 1 DVD, and for ages and ages, I just had a beaten-up old VHS copy. It's one of those movies that somehow got lost in the mix. I remember interviewing Allison Anders when the film was coming out. I was working at Radio 1. I was so excited about it. I was convinced it was going to be the big pop hit movie of the year. As it was, it just flew under everyone's radar. If you haven't seen it, try and track it down, maybe on a beaten-up old VHS, or perhaps you'll see it at the Larmer Tree when I'm doing the film club this weekend. But here's what I want to know. The interesting thing about Grace of My Heart is that it is a fictional account. It's very adventurous, the interplay between fiction and reality, the way in which it's a true story but an untrue story. So what, as far as you're concerned, is the most adventurous rock movie? The movie which does the most adventurous thing for the format, that takes truth, that takes fiction, that takes reality, that takes unreality, that takes invention and established classics and does something new and original with them. Which one for you really stands out? And have any of you actually seen Grace of My Heart? And do you love it as much as I do?